wrist and the hilt's already fading. Leather in my grip, I never miss my swing. River running red from the dead, escaping. Heaven or hell, take the land between. And I bear this weight that I'm under, and no force could tempt a kneel. I bend for honor only, no this seal, it's not real. This shattered will define a spirit burning and honest. My demons paralyzed, terrified. They branded sacrifice, so tarnished early and often. My fury justified. Sealed up my fate and raped the embers. A scarlet taste my blade remembers. Temper my crown, yeah. I wield what can't decay. No, feel the fury inside. Try to bury my pride, but I'll rob the grave. My skin to stone, my flesh to onyx. This gravity is daunting. The poison.
I have so many emotions. I'm gonna get through them. I have so many things to say tonight. And hi and welcome to another rendition of Grapple Gurus here at the BC WrestlePod Network conglomeration syndicate podcast and YouTube Twitch dumb that we got going on. I am one of your hosts, Mikey, and I have the entirety of the TNA trio here tonight of the Takedown Troupe of Papa Os. Okay, so I'm gonna get this out the way. So we watched Final Resolution that happened last Friday on the 13th. And then I'm like sitting here thinking, okay, so between Friday and today, I was like, sit with what happened as far as the results go. And you know what? I have some feelings about the matches and the things like that, but we'll get through it. And then the floodgates decided to open because people are leaving. You know, we had some controversy. Supposedly, you know, TNA is asking certain stars for pay cuts, apparently, which I don't know what the fuck that's about. Excuse my French. I shouldn't have dropped that curse word this early. But what's going to happen here, and to let you all know, is that we are going to go through Final Resolution, and then we're going to talk about this news and TNA as a whole with the ups and downs that we've had in 2024 with this company. Because I love you, TNA, but you have thrown some weird curveballs in the last week or so that has made me put some pause onto what is going down. So, you have been warned. I'm going to be very spicy tonight, so if language and very frustrated, angry Mikey is not your speed, then that is okay. But you also should probably get used to it because I say come back tomorrow when you see a common version, but we're watching ROH Final Battle, so I can't promise anything. But let's just get into it. So Final Resolution is the final TNA, PLE, PPV, whatever you want to call it, for 2024 for the company, which did take place in Atlanta, Georgia, which, you know, I love Hotlanta. It's fantastic. But we had 2 matches on the Countdown show. And again, I say this all the time. I want the Countdown show, if I am new to TNA, to make me want to buy the pay-per-view or at least subscribe to TNA Plus and watch this. And we kicked things off with Leon Slater versus JDC of the System. I'm going to say this for a lot of matches, so bear with me. We had like little to no story build for some of these things. But now in the context of what we're going to talk about at the very end makes a whole lot of sense. But Leon Slater versus JDC, there is a little bit of a connection because Leon Slater does have beef with somewhat of the System, but we haven't gotten to the deep chapters of it all. I will start off by saying I like Leon. I really, really do. Hopefully he sticks around in 2025. I want to see him do great things. He's great in all the other places I see him pop up in, whether it's GCW or Progress or the UK wrestling scene. I'm mad that JDC won, but that's just me. I was like, damn it. Can we not let Leon Slater win? I will say, though, this was a very entertaining match. It went the way that I thought it was going to. I was entertained. And I can't believe I'm saying this. This is probably one of my better matches because this was one of the few matches that didn't piss me off. Which we'll get there. Papa, also, I'm going to come to you first. Leon Slater versus JDC.
Literally, no. Anytime the System wins, I'm like, no. No. Leon Slater should have won that match. I'm sorry. He should have. I mean, seriously. I mean, the System, if you pull JDC away from the System, I'd be 100% behind him. But because he's associated with the System and I am so done with the System, I don't care. I literally don't care. I was like, oh, Leon Slater's, okay, don't care. Nope. And then when JDC won, I was like, I really don't care now.
Just as a sidebar, we need to figure out who Will hates more, the System or his favorite person of all time, Charlie Dempsey.
Now there's a difference.
Oh no.
Because Charlie Dempsey is an individual that I could just absolutely want to drop a house on. The System is a group of people that I wish would be sucked into the abyss. As a group. As individuals, I don't dislike them. As a group, I dislike them.
Would it make it better if AJ Francis joined the System?
No, see, I'm really glad that he's leaving. So I will say I did do a circle dance when I heard that he was leaving. So I was like, yay, now I don't have to look at him anymore. Or his little sidekick, who I just wanted to punch in the face.
Listen, we do not besmirch the name that is Casey Navarro. We actually like Casey in this
he
household.
Needs to move away from AJ Francis because right now I'm just like, I literally want to put my fist in his face. It's like, and it could just be based on association. But anyway, I think Leon Slater should have won this match. Even this match wasn't bad. The two wrestlers did great, I thought. But I really don't understand why they did. I don't understand why Leon Slater didn't win the match. I really don't. I didn't understand why JDC won. I couldn't figure out the psychology behind this. You know, I had funny thing, Adolfo and I had this conversation yesterday with CMLL because
Check
a lot
that
of
review out.
Yeah, you should. Because we were talking about a lot of the matches because there were crossover matches from like AEW was there, ROH was there, blah blah blah, and we were talking about the psychology of the matches didn't make any sense. The psychology of this match didn't make any sense. So that's why I'm like, and that's kind of my thought through the whole thing is I didn't understand the psychology behind a lot of what was happening. Like in the grand scheme of what the overall storylines are, what the overall story arcs, et cetera, I didn't understand it. I don't understand. And I know this was like pre-show, like countdown stuff. So, usually these matches are kind of throwaway, but I don't understand it. I didn't understand the psychology. I don't understand where it fits in. Does that make sense? I mean, or am I just ranting? Okay.
No, that totally makes sense.
Okay. That was it.
No,
I love Leon Slater, by the way.
Yeah, I know. I love him too. But you bring up a good point too, and I feel like that's going to be a consistent running through line for this whole entire thing. That there's a lot of the psychology and the booking. When you add that was kind of very looking at it with the sideways glance. So, Andrew, same question to you. How do we feel about Slater versus JDC?
It was all right. No, I'm just kidding.
I swear to God, if you are so mid about this whole thing, you need to leave.
It happened.
Okay. Yeah.
I mean, that's fair.
No, it was good action. It was good in ring work. I thought JDC did a good job keeping up with someone like Leon Slater, or at least his performance psychology was good against someone like Leon Slater, because Leon Slater is so young, high flying, he's just super athletic and everything. To what Will was saying, I think it's interesting that TNA's narrative doesn't match up their booking for Leon Slater. Every time he's in there, they hype about how he's so phenomenal. He wants to be the youngest X Division champion. He wants to break that record. But then he doesn't get booked like they're actually going to let that happen, unless they're going to try and spin him heel. And like his losing is just a way of like getting him to that point. Like he's going to like make that switch, which
Right.
I've seen him in some other promotions where he is a little more heelish, which I actually really enjoy.
Especially Progress. Like, I
Yeah.
kind of dig Progress heel Leon Slater.
Well, and when he showed up in GCW too, he was a little more like ruthless and everything. And I think I like that, but we just need to see some actual build on that instead of this kind of, oh, we're just doing this, but we're not making it.
He's
clear.
the happy to be here wrestler, and
Yeah.
that can only take you so far.
But as far as the match goes, I felt the same way about this match as I do the next match, which I'll go more, in depth about why this bothered me so much. I mean, it bothers me in general when you're talking about a PLE or a PVV. But this match was a decent match, but it could have been a weekly Impact match. And
That
not
is
even a main
very
event.
true. That is very, very true. Well, I mean, you already brought it up, so let's just talk about the other countdown match we had, because this also bothered me in terms of booking. Jonathan Gresham versus the king of TNA himself, Frankie Kazarian. Why did TNA hate Gresham? What he do backstage? Why he keep losing? Like, what is happening?
They just can't let that couple be too strong. So since Jordan's doing so well, they just have to not let Jonathan do very well.
It's because he black. No, I'm not about to say that, but I mean, listen, why we hating on the black wrestlers? Like, what is happening? Gresham should not be losing this much. Oh my
Especially
goodness.
the Kazarian. Really?
I feel like Kazarian could have fought anybody else. Why?
He shouldn't have. This match shouldn't have been booked.
No.
It was weird too, because in the beginning it felt kind of sloppy. Like there were some parts that were like really off. But it was. There was a part that almost really pissed me off, because it looked like Kazarian, we didn't talk about it in the last match, but JDC got the win from his feet on the ropes. There was a moment when Kazarian almost did it, and I was about to be super pissed already. If I was like, we have our first two matches, and it's both the heels winning by putting their feet on the ropes. Mind you, he still won by shenanigans, but it's just such a bummer to see Jonathan Gresham just sacrifice to Frankie Kazarian, and they're going to have Kazarian win whether it's legit or not, because he's got the trophy. But like you said, Mikey, they could have put him against anybody. Anyone could have been in there. And the only way I think that they could have made this meaningful is if, like, they were going to use this as a way to get back to Gresham and the octopus or something. Like, have him go into the chicken wing, and then once he's done and he's been choked out, he starts like coughing up ink or something like that. But honestly, I feel like, we're going to talk more about this later, but if Jordan is leaving TNA at
not
some
be
point,
surprised.
Jonathan should leave too. Like, he needs to go somewhere else, whether it's independence, AEW, WWE, NXT, where I think he could do great in NXT as well. You know, hell, somewhere in Mexico, Japan, whatever. He just needs to go somewhere else, whether he's actually going to get booked to be a top guy.
Shoot, even MLW, which is crazy to say. I don't know if it's real or not, but I'm like, with the leader of the Boomaye movement, Alex Kane, I was like, what? He's not actually gone, is it? Well, I couldn't find anything about that, but yeah. I'm tired of watching Gresham get sacrificed in these 6-man tags. I'm tired of getting sacrificed as a single star. Like, what did he do? Seriously, TNA. Ugh, it's so frustrating. Will I come to you with this one too? Just why?
Yeah, I have a sign.
Oh, we got signs now. Okay.
Because I'm sorry, putting Gresham in this match against Frankie Kazarian makes Gresham look like a rookie. Makes him look weak. Because first of all, Kazarian's character is a clown. You literally, Jonathan Gresham, who we've seen just annihilate people, you know, even before the octopus. I mean, he was so like powerful, and you put him in the ring with this clown, because that's what Kazarian is now. That's what this is. This whole thing is just, it's clownish, and you make him look weak, because anybody who is in the ring with Kazarian, I mean, they're going to lose because they're not going to give up that cup yet. So it's like, why? And like you said, why sacrifice him to Kazarian? Because, I mean, come on, there are so many other like newer wrestlers who want the chance to get in the ring. Let them have this. You know, let them have this. Don't. I'm sorry, and if they're doing this, you know, and we know that's not necessarily the case, but if they're kind of keeping him down because Jordan's so high, that's kind of shitty. Because I really like Jonathan Gresham. I think he's a fantastic wrestler. I think he's a powerful wrestler. I think he's a very like charismatic human being, and they just keep chopping him down, and I'm like, you know, and maybe this is the, you know, because Jordan's leaving, maybe he's like, oh, I don't care. And, you know, just put me wherever you want, man, because I'm going to leave when she leaves. Or, you know, I don't know if that's what this is or not, you know, whatever. But I don't necessarily think that he would be that type of like personality. But I just, and I don't know if that's the thing. If TNA is saying, well, you know, Jordan's leaving, so that means you're going to leave too. So we're just going to put you in bullshit matches, which again is a disservice to not just Jonathan, but whoever he's fighting against. I mean, so, and I just hate, I really hate this character that Kazarian has created. I really hate the character. And because we know that no matter what, he's gonna cheat. We know this. And again, this gets into the psychology of it. Excuse me. And we've talked, Mikey, you and I have talked about this and other times when we're talking about how in the world do these people fighting him not understand that he is going to cheat? I mean, come on. You know he's going to cheat. It's the only way he can win right now is by cheating. So when the opponent gets in the ring, I mean, Gresham should have been like, okay, this dipshit's going to cheat. So let me figure out what he's going to do and let me counter that. And I just, you know, it just drives me insane. It's like with the Rascals when they used to do the spray paint. It's like, how do you not know they're going to pull out the cans? So yeah, this match shouldn't have happened. Should not have happened.
I feel like the way that TNA books Jonathan Gresham is the way that WWE booked Ricochet.
Oh,
like, they don't use them in the way that would really elevate them to be someone of a status that they're going to use for things. And it's silly because TNA doesn't have a huge roster, but someone like Jonathan Gresham, I mean, he could be a main person in the X division. He could be someone that they could actually put the digital media title on and do something with it. But it's kind of like he's just an extra guy to be beat.
He's
I got to
being
go
a
out there.
floater, and that's so
Yeah.
not the position for him.
I would love to see him in the digital media title. That would be great.
Seriously, but
But this
yeah,
match felt like a weekly show match too.
it really did. Countdown failed us.
I feel like if anything, you could have taken Jonathan Gresham out of this. You could have put Leon Slater in there against Frankie Kazarian. And Leon Slater was going to lose if he faced Frankie Kazarian.
But it would have made sense story-wise because they got beef right now too during the weeklies.
And then something else that a lot of these matches bugged me about is the matches that we didn't get. But if you combine those two matches and you had another match available, you could have had your Knockouts Tag Team Champions in action.
Yeah.
We've been teasing Spitfire and the Elegance Girls for weeks now. Like, when are we getting that match?
At all? Exactly.
Oh my gosh.
And again, even if you wanted to pay, if you want to pay that off later, if you're like trying to stretch that out, you can have them go against somebody else. Like bring someone in. They did it for Jordan Grace when she was the champion. Bring in another tag team to have them face against, even if it's someone.
My money is on the Metaphor Girls. Metaphor versus Spitfire would be fantastic.
But put them in action. They're champions too. Like they should be out here wrestling. And the fact that they haven't been on the last two shows,
it's crazy.
It's stupid.
Well, we leave behind the countdown show and its stupidity. And we start off with something that makes no damn sense for me. But again, in the context of what we come to find out later in the week, it does. But the main card of Final Resolution kicks off with an X Division Championship match, Moose versus Kushida. Again, on paper, I was like, okay, Moose is not going to lose, but I think it's going to be a fun match. Still on the fence about that one, but and I don't know
that's one opinion.
That's one opinion. I'm still on the fence about. See, I don't know if it's because of the predictability. I just didn't enjoy this, but I also felt for some reason Moose and Kushida were not hitting certain cues, and that kind of did not mesh well together, which I was a little surprised by because we've seen Kushida and Moose cross paths before, and they've been able to make it work. This one was not it for me. I was disappointed in this match. I'm not gonna lie. I was just like, I love both of you, but this was not a good match, you guys. For me personally, this was okay at best. And I think that's what sucks. It's because I know both of them individually are better than that. And then this was just kind of like, all right, it was here. We opened up the show. Cool, moving on.
My biggest issue with this, because technically they both did fine. Was it my favorite match from either of them? No, but it was fun. I liked it better than some of the matches we got before. The biggest issue I had with this was I wouldn't have cared any less about this match had I watched this after the show and already saw the results for it, because I already knew there was no question that Moose was going to win this match. No doubt that he was going to walk away as a champion. I knew Kushida wasn't going to win. So watching this match, it wasn't even one of those like, oh, maybe they're going to subvert my expectations. Like, who knows? Like, I'm willing to like hold on to it. Like, no doubt. So then at that point, why do I care?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Well, anything else you want to add?
No. It's another one that shouldn't have happened.
All right, moving on. Normally we try to be positive here on BC WrestlePod, but when something is crap, you guys, we're going to call it out, because I will not have my intelligence as a wrestling fan insulted by these companies.
Well, it's also because, and touching on, and not necessarily this particular match, but touching on is the fact that the predictability of things. It's like, if you want to keep your fan base guessing, then you need to put somebody in that ring with Moose that could actually dethrone him. Like full on. And I'm not saying Kushida couldn't do that, But this match felt like completely put together with duct tape. And I'm just like, maybe if there was something prior to this, like full on.
Or the other thing too is that, and I know technically he may or may not be full time, but if he wanted someone similar to Kushida, but then can probably give Moose a run for his money, and we've seen it before. And this is not a dig to Kushida because I think he's fantastic, but you could have swapped him out with his other half, because Kushida is an IWGP Tag Team Champion in New Japan. I'm just saying you could have swapped Kushida out with his tag team partner and Kevin Knight. And I think Kevin versus Moose would have been more compelling because, again, Kevin's about the same size as Moose. He has more of the aerial stuff, but we've seen Kevin, well, at least I've seen Kevin in, the independents in the New Japan be able to surprise people with how powerful he can be when he's given the chance, as well as flying around the ring left and right.
I would have enjoyed this match if it was Moose versus Gresham.
You know what? I'd be here for that too. Again, we could have left Frankie we could have taken Gresham out if we're losing to Frankie, and I would have been less mad had Moose beat Gresham, because at least that is more comparable in terms of, I hate saying like booking it like a video game, but like the stats wise would be close to each other and it'd be entertaining and be a close bout.
And if we're talking about rebooking things, I think you put Kazarian against Leon Slater. And there was the next match that we're going to talk about that we already knew something was going to change in that booking. The TNA Impact that happened before this was pre-recorded, so it's not like we couldn't have put in that the card changed. They've done it plenty of times. Talk about something that could have been added to this match to make it different. Moose versus Jake something for that title.
Yes.
I would have been here for that too.
Take him out of that other match and
Yeah.
redo that other match too, because I had issues with that. The point of that.
Oh,
match
we'll
too,
talk
but
about that.
Yeah,
We'll talk about that in a minute.
Jake something versus Moose would have been
That would have been
an
great.
awesome match to see, and it would have been a challenge to Moose that is, pardon the pun, something that would be more interesting, because we know no matter who's in there with Moose, the likelihood that he's going to drop that title this soon early on and getting it is super low. But if we see Moose versus someone like Jake something, then we're like, ooh, that's a real threat. And at this point, Jake something doesn't need a reason to go after Moose, because Jake and Hammerstone have just been trying to attack everybody, and now he's on his own. So why wouldn't he take that opportunity to go after the title?
I agree. That would have been way better.
Yeah. All to say, Moose retains to nobody's shock and all here. And we go on to our next match. We just keep here. Where's my shovel? I'm gonna give it to TNA.
It's just keep coming.
So again, normally I never backpedal on my grades when I give these pay-per-views, but had I been given the information that we learned this week of what's going down in TNA before I watched this, Final Resolution would not have gotten the grade that it did. But I was grading this based on the information I had at that time, which was little to nothing. But first and foremost, Gia Miller, before the pay-per-view even begins on social media, lets us know that Hammerstone is injured again. I'm like, what the hell, Hammerstone? What did you do now?
I think it was his knee. It was his leg injury from the last PPV.
I'm like, damn it, Hammerstone. I was like, we got to keep you up and running, bud. We can't have you. It's so frustrating. So at this point, I'm thinking to myself, okay, Hammerstone is out. Jake's going to need a partner. Bring somebody in, or like randomly have somebody that Jake in his current character arc can go with. Bring somebody from the independents. Just bring somebody in, right? So we get the backstage segment prior to this on the Countdown show where Gio's like, so Hammerstone's gone, Jake. So what are you going to do? Who are you going to find? And Jake, I love you to death, my dude. I love you to death. But the answer was not, I'm going to do this on my own. I was like, when has that ever worked in tag team matches like this? I know you have the repertoire and the power moveset of like 3 individually grown ass men. But it is a tag team match. You are literally now 4-on-1, if you will. So I'm just gonna spoil it. Rascals win. To me, I love the Rascals. I really do. This win meant nothing to me because there's no freaking stakes. Like, was there that they didn't mention it was the number 1 contendership for the tag titles?
Yeah,
it should have been. And then I would have been like, okay, I still don't like that Jake was by himself, but we had some stakes, you know.
Yeah, this match should have been.
The Rascals did not need to be here. I love them. I was like, the Rascals did not need to be here because really it's been Jake and Hammerstone versus Sammy and PCO for the last couple weeks.
Yeah.
The Rascals have been kind of fighting everybody else on their own side plot, if you will. And then they get plopped into this match. There are no number 1 contender stakes. It's just a match to have the match. The Rascals win. I love that the Rascals won, but the win means nothing to them. It's just another win.
And I mean, we talk about other matches you could have made out of this. If they wouldn't have tried to overbook this, and it had just been Sammy and PCO, or the Undeath Machines, as they were calling them, versus something and Hammerstone, and Hammerstone got injured, you could have rewritten this match to be PCO versus something for the digital media title. Because once again, we have our champion not doing anything with that title. Hell, he's got 2 titles technically. But yeah. There were so many ways that you could have made this match interesting, and just sort of having another multi-person match to have a match with these people. And honestly, the most interesting thing about this is the whole 23 thing.
I agree with all of that. It's just I mean, literally, it's just when the hits keep coming and coming and coming and coming. It's just like, well, maybe the next one will be great. Maybe the next one over. No. All right. Another mismatched wrestling match in a pay-per-view.
Hell, you could have brought Trent Seven in here to replace Hammerstone if you weren't putting him in another match, just to have him in another match against Ace Austin later.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, since we're already discussing Trent. Okay, this match I did not hate. I want to preface by saying that I actually really enjoyed this. However, why were these 2 fighting? Like, what? I was like, huh?
Again, this pay-per-view was held together with freaking duct tape.
Like, I understand that ABC and all that were fighting.
Third people in 6-man tag match. It was the battle of the third wheels.
Exactly.
God, man, I feel so bad for these 2 because this was actually a really stellar match. I thought both of these were great. But let's talk about the elephant in the room. So at the time of this pay-per-view, I was like, okay, Ace Austin wins, beats Trent 7. Cool. You know, we could see something more from these 2. What do you mean later in the week? What do you mean Trent 7's gone from TNA? Huh?
It's funny too, because my last note that I put for this match was 7 could be used as really well as a division heel outside of the world title picture, like the X Division or Digital Media title or whatever, especially if they were going to have him kind of head something with something and Hammerstone. And then that happened. I was like, well, so much for that idea. But I do think this match should be the jumping off point for Ace Austin to now go out on his own. I think he needs to be focused on as a single star, and we need to move away from this, like, he's doing it for Chris Bay and all that kind of stuff. Like I love the support that they're giving to that, but now is a chance for Ace Austin to do his own thing and really be focused on. And then when Chris Bay hopefully is able to return, if that's a possibility, then they can go back to ABC, and that's great. Like, do what they've done with, like, the New Day and stuff like that in the past. Like, let Ace Austin have a good, solid run as a singles competitor, because he can, and he'd be phenomenal. So I think that's one of the the best things that can come out of this match.
I'm gonna miss Trent. That's where I am with this. I'm just sad now knowing what we know.
Oh, I know.
I mean, the only other place for him right now, if he's going to a major fed, is AEW, and I don't trust them enough to use him right.
Go to Ring of Honor.
Hey, you know, I would say yes, but again, I don't trust AEW. So, I was sad. Again, I really like this match, but knowing the information that I know now, I'm gonna miss Trent, and I'm betting you $5 because because the main title picture is locked up. I think we're gonna see Ace Austin chase that X Division Championship again, which I'm excited for. But man, Ace is always reliable in the X Division. They don't want to do anything else.
I know I'm a broken record on it, but let him go after that digital media title. They need to put it on somebody that will hold it like a champion. And while right now it feels like a lesser title, it's only because it's being treated as such. If you put it on him and treat it like a championship, then it'll mean something, and he's someone who could really highlight that.
Trent 7, we're gonna miss you. We're gonna discuss all this in depth at the very end because there's a lot of things to talk about. Because TNA has now found itself in the precarious position that I felt after Hard to Kill earlier this year. Alrighty, we move on. Oh my god, okay, this is where I'm really gonna get pissed off. So, again, no number one contendership. Honestly, in my opinion, didn't really need to. But low-key, I was kind of excited. I'm like, okay, Jordan Rose, we've been kind of beefing the last couple months, and then we're going to fight. Once again, wrestling has proved me right in the fact that it is very misogynistic, and the asshole tendencies of booking decisions were made, because this match went to a no contest. Okay, I need to prepare everybody, so hold up, you know, before we get into all this, right? It's been a while, but I need to this needs to come back up for a little bit because I'm about to say some horrible stuff and I'm about to go off while I say that, and then it's watch it not be that bad. But I'm going to be very transparent when I talk about what is about to go down next, because this legit made me upset and I am torn. And I have TNA, looking at TNA crazy right now. So, while we are here to discuss things, this is my opinion and my opinion alone, and I am okay with that. However, don't be a butthole in the chat, because I will block and you will get banned. Okay. So, this match goes for about 10 minutes. Jordan and Rosemary go back and forth. I was actually really excited for this. And then somebody in a hoodie jumps in and starts attacking Jordan, which causes this into a no contest. Jordan gets beat up. Person in the hoodie, you know, takes off the hoodie and the mask. Oh my god. Okay, so strap in, kids, because this is and you thought I had a lot to say when we had a certain other person in charge of WWE and the decisions they made. TNA really rocked my foundation of my faith in them, because Tessa Blanchard is back in TNA. And I don't have enough words to describe how I'm feeling about this. So I'm not going to go into detail, because anybody who has been a wrestling fan within the last 4 or 5 years already knows the story of Tessa Blanchard and her last tenure in TNA, with her bullying backstage and very microaggressiveness and prejudice and racist to certain talents of color and certain backgrounds. And then she went to CMLL and she kind of had a redemption arc, and now TNA brought her back. I honestly don't know where to start with this one, boys. I really don't, because I have such a vitriol, antagonistic feeling about this whole situation.
I'll jump in So I do want to talk about the match before getting into Tessa Blanchard, and I think this match really will tie into my feelings about the whole event and kind of TNA. So the match itself, there should have been a stipulation for this match. It should have been Full Metal Mayhem, Monsters Ball, it should have been something, because the last time these two fought, Jordynne Grace was the champion and Rosemary challenged. Rosemary lost because of outside interference, or the match was thrown out or whatever for outside interference. So this was like the chance to like finish that story off. The way that this went, we know that Jordynne is wrapping up, so it makes it feel like, and now from what we hear, Jordynne's going to be doing a program with Tessa Blanchard. So the whole thing with her and Rosemary just kind of gets ignored and not finished. And it feels like Rosemary is one of the staples of TNA that should have had a full story with Jordynne Grace and did never really get it, which is such a letdown. And having Tessa Blanchard come in like this, like, it should have been a finish. And I think what they didn't want to do is give Jordynne Grace another loss and give Rosemary another loss. So they did something this way to create some more drama, which obviously they created drama just by bringing this person in. There should have been a special stipulation with this. We should have had some culmination of this story between Jordynne Grace and Rosemary before they moved on. That stuff being said, the stuff with Tessa Blanchard, I feel like people, especially when they're young or, are learn certain ways or whatever, like, yeah, if she has changed, if she's made amends, if she's done those kind of things. When I first saw this, I was like, all right, well, maybe things have gotten better. Maybe there's stuff we're not hearing about. Like, sometimes they'll keep this stuff private, yada, yada, yada. So, like, let's see what happens. Since then, I've also heard that they kept this a secret from people backstage in TNA, not because they wanted to surprise them, but because they were afraid of the backlash. That there are people who are in TNA who have been having some big issues with her showing up. One of them being Jordynne Grace, though apparently she's at least worked the program with her. So it's not that I'm opposed to her getting a second chance. It's that TNA is they're making the wrong decisions to have people trust that this was a right choice. And I think when you have someone come back from some of the stuff that she's done, you have to go above and beyond to reassure the talent and the fans that those things are not going to happen again. That person not only isn't going to do those things, but that person has learned and made amends for those things. And from what it seems like, it almost just seems like TNA went, well, it's been long enough. So now we can just bring her back, and we need someone, because we're losing all this talent, that we need someone with the name recognition and someone who can kind of fill the gap that some of the people leaving are going to fill, or, are going to leave. So even if the best possible things have happened, they are not giving anybody faith in that has actually happened. You're muted, Mikey.
See, the microphone doesn't want me to say the things I'm about to say. No, I agree with you, Andrew, because now that I've had time to be with it, I was like, I want to give Tessa a second chance, because I actually did enjoy her in CMLL, since we started covering. But TNA is making me question my faith in them, not just from this, but then doubling down on some questionable stuff, because supposedly Hulk Hogan is also going to be involved in some capacity, like for an episode, and I'm just like, why? Now listen, I have my issues with Tessa, but there is not a person more than Hulk Hogan. Like, Hulk Hogan is on my permanent shit list for the rest of eternity. That man can burn in hell for all I care, for all the nasty, vile things he has done and said to other people. Again, I'm going to give Tessa a chance because maybe she has changed and maybe she has learned from the horrible things that she did in her last tenure in TNA. But TNA, I feel like, are firing on all cylinders too quickly and are announcing these things like Tessa and Hulk. And now with what's coming out about the roster and people leaving, I'm just like, TNA is about to have a major shakeup. So they need to get it together. Like, please. I want people to start watching you, TNA. It's already been an uphill battle the last 3 years to not be made fun of for being a TNA fan. But we got to start making these correct decisions and hopefully it pans out. But yeah, outside of Tessa, I was so upset that Rosemary gets shafted once again, like you said, Andrew. Like, again, in the same way that we talked about Jonathan Gresham, Rosemary gets no respect right now, and it makes me mad. Because how you gonna have her be a tag team champion at the beginning of the year? Then I actually kind of like her and Wendy Chu together as a little tag team until that broke up. And again, Jordan and Rosemary never had that full circle moment of them going up against each other because they've been beefing the whole year. And now we're not even going to get that anymore because it seems that Jordan and Tessa are going to be the program going into Genesis. Justice for Rosemary. That is all I have to say.
Ditto.
Cool. Yeah, Will only knows a little bit about the Tessa story because that's only for some of us were there when it went down. It was nuts.
I mean, minus all the Tessa Blanchard stuff. I mean, the match was ridiculous.
So mad that we wasted a women's match just for this return.
Oh yeah. I'm just like, you could have done something completely
You could have had her come out at the end of the match to beat her up. Like, that would have been fine.
Did you hear the thing? Did you hear the interview that Booker T gave about her? About how when they released her, it was the worst decision they ever made.
See, Booker T also has some questionable things as well.
Yeah.
In terms of what he talks about. I'm like, sir, are we watching the same thing? I kind of put Booker T in like my crazy old grandpa category. Like, he just says the weirdest thing. Listen, Will, the things we hear come out of Booker T's mouth on a weekly basis on NXT have us like looking at him sideways sometimes.
Yeah,
so like, yeah. It's like, but again, I'm mad that this women's knockouts match was wasted on this return. And now Rosemary still doesn't get no full closure. Justice for Rosemary. We move on. This is the only redeeming thing about this show for me personally. And while I wished it was more intense than it was, I am happy that Joe Hendry won. I am also happy that Mike Santana did not get pinned, which was the important bit to me because I thought Mike was about to lose. And because of this match, I think we're getting a Josh and Mike Santana feud out of this, which makes me so excited. I mean, Andrew doesn't care less. Well, fuck you. I'm just kidding. I'm going to be honest. This is the only redeeming match for me this whole night. This one actually lived up to what I wanted it to be. I mean, I wish I got some more ferocity out of it.
But, I mean, Josh is leaving, so.
That's fair.
We won't get much of a thing. It's like, though I would love that. I think that would be great, but. Yeah.
And we have Josh until February.
And I get to see Joe Hendry at Genesis.
Yeah, which he
better fucking win.
I know.
And I thought this was an awesome match. This was probably my match of the night. I really enjoyed it. All four of these guys looked stellar. They looked really good. I was happy for Hendry the way he won and everything. It seems like they're building him to win because he got the win over Josh Alexander. Like, that was his revenge there. So now it's his chance to, make his return to the top. And I'm super happy for Hendry. But Mike Santana has earned and deserves a title in TNA.
Mhm.
And I don't care what title it is, because he is someone who will make a title. It doesn't have to be the world title. He will make a title mean something extra by him holding that title. X Division, he should be the X Division champion.
For
He's
real.
only ever been a tag team champion in TNA. He should win that X Division title at the beginning of the year, and he should hold it for the majority of the year, because he could have something like Mustafa Ali had, like Chris Sabin had. Like, he could really elevate that up, and make it. And hell, you have him have that run. You don't even have him lose. You have him beat everyone that comes in front of him, and then he cashes it in and goes after that world title shot.
For real.
But if he does not win a title, it's going to be the ultimate, what are you doing with Mike Santana? Because it's like, he should be a champion, but he's constantly like third or fourth in line to get a title. And they've done good things with him, having him beat all the system and stuff like that, but that will start to mean less and less if it never pays off.
I agree. I totally agree. I couldn't unmute myself. It's like, I totally agree. I think Mike Santana would be like the best X Division champion. I think he's got the gumption, he's got the energy, he's got the charisma, he gets the audience behind him. I mean, he's a badass. And I mean, I'm sorry, but it's time for this. Like I said, it's time for the system to stop and go away, shut down completely. He needs to. I agree. He needs to go and take it off of Moose and like make the X Division something that it used to be. Because I think right now in Moose's hands, it's nothing. It's just, again, we're looking at the system. They're collecting souvenirs, and it's like, it doesn't even mean anything. So I think Mike Santana can make it mean something, like really, and people really want to go after it.
Well,
go ahead.
Go ahead.
No, go ahead.
Okay. All I was going to say, especially since Josh is leaving in February, you have your three outside of Nick. You have Nick, Joe, Mike, and Steve. To me, those are your four big faces, and I love Moose. But right now, the system Moose ain't it for me. Mm-hmm. But Mike Santana and Joe Hendry and Nick Nemeth with Macklin off to the side a little bit. To me, those are who you should build 2025 around, honestly, for this men's division, especially since we're losing Josh. I mean, AJ Francis is just a heel character, but he's not going to be there. And who knows how many other men's talent are going to stick around come 2025, depending on how things shake up. I think Mike Santana has done enough this year. Put the title on him. Put something on him. And I agree with Andrew. Book this man to just decimate in the X Division and then cash that thing in at one of the big 4 pay-per-views for TNA and have him win that world title by the end of 2025.
And the great thing with Mike Santana is you talk about the X Division, and it's not about weight limits, it's no limits. Mike Santana is one of the few wrestlers who can keep up with the Leon Slaters, the Mike Baileys, the Ace Austins, all of those people that we normally associate with the X Division. But then he could also stop those people like Moose, Jake Something, all those big powerhouses that might try to go after that X Division title. So he is able to go both ways and be believable in defending it against anybody that comes after that X Division title. And I think that's what you need. And we haven't really had, at least for a while, because it's either been, the Mike Baileys, the Chris Sabins, the classic X Division people, or the random people like Samoa Joe and Moose and Brian Cage and the big powerhouses. So it's always been like one extreme or the other. And Mike Santana really is in the middle ground.
He's the perfect amalgamation of a high-flying big man who can both throw you like through the mat if he really wanted to by power bombing you, but also getting on the top rope and knocking some sense into you. Again, I agree with both of you. This was my match of the whole entire pay-per-view. Joe Hendry does move on to Genesis, so it's going to be, spoiler alert, it's going to be Nick Nemeth and Joe Hendry. But let's be real, we knew AJ was not winning that title. But it's going to be Joe Hendry versus Nick Nemeth, and probably what's going to be the main event. Again, this match was great. We move on. So, it wasn't until like earlier in the show that we found out this turned into a Falls Count Anywhere match. And I have to say, this match was also banging. Like, you know, the same thing I said about Rosemary. I feel like Tasha also doesn't get credit where credit is due for her too. Like, Homegirl was booked in the beginning of the year. You know, she did get close to championship material. Then we didn't see her for a little bit. Then she came back, and now she had this really great match against Masha. This was a fun Falls Count Anywhere match. Tasha deserves her flowers. I feel like she also doesn't get utilized the way that I hope she does. This was great. Did I think Masha was going to lose? No. If she did, as much as I would be happy for Tasha, I think I would have been more upset for Masha, because I'm like, really? You going to take the title off her? Yeah, but I digress. Also, we're going to talk a little bit more about this later, but because of the landscape of where the Knockouts division is going in 2025, I'm a little worried for Miss Masha and how long she's going to hold this title.
I mean, I feel like Masha's got to have a run like Jordan did. There's just not enough in-house people for her to face off against. She can face basically all the same people in-house, like Rosemary, Ash, but it looks like she's in the tag division, but Zaya, like all those people that are still in TNA, but they have to go farm people out. Honestly, I think the best use of Tasha would be you put Tasha with Savannah Evans and you make them a tag team to go after Spitfire.
Put them back together again, yeah.
Yeah. And this match was really good up until the end, because the end almost felt like they needed to wrap it up, and it happened too sudden. There needed to be a bigger or featured spot to really like hit home with this, to have it mean something. And it just felt like it was building, and then it just ended. It just felt a little anticlimactic, especially because we knew Masha was going to win, but I wanted to see Masha do something extreme to win. And I think that would have also elevated Tasha, because it was like, oh, Masha had to do this crazy thing in order to win over Tasha, because she's such a like violent competitor. My favorite thing that came out of this match is that Santino is hands down the best authority figure.
Yes,
right now.
The way he carried Lisha was amazing. Santino wins my favorite on-screen personality that is not a wrestler in 2024, hands down, no contest. And that's hard, because honestly for me, it's between him and Prince Nana in AEW, because Nana is great as well. But the man promotes his own coffee, which is great, by the way. Go check that out. But yeah, Santino is amazing.
Lexi would be up there too.
Those are my three. Yeah, Lexi and Dalton carried ROH at the beginning of the year, not gonna lie, in those backstage segments. They were so damn good. But see, okay, so I know she's kind of being a mom right now, but when she's ready to come back and everything, can you imagine? I want to see a Masha versus Killer Kelly feud. Like, that shit would be crazy. I miss Killer Kelly, but I am happy her and her baby. I'm excited for her. She's about to be a mom. She's going to be a mom for a little bit, but Killer Kelly, when you're ready to come back to the ring, Masha versus Killer Kelly is money. Give it to me right now.
I also wonder how long TNA can keep Masha, because I think Masha is she's right on the cusp too of somewhere else is going to want to sign her, and they're going to be able to give her opportunities that TNA is not going to be. And if it's someplace like AEW, she'd be able to still do all of her appearances in GCW. If it's someplace like NXT, she could still go over and do those Bloodsport events. So there's still other places that she could do all the extra stuff that she's doing while getting a bigger stage, new competitors, new opportunities. And she's still really young and has just gotten better and better every year.
Her versus Athena would be nuts. Alrighty, Will, I know we haven't gotten to you a lot, but what did you feel about Tasha and Masha?
I mean, I liked it. I agree with Andrew. I think that it ended kind of on a blah note. I think that's because we built Tasha. We've built Tasha Steelz up as this sort of like unstoppable force, and she was kind of stoppable. So, I mean, I agree. I would have liked to have Masha had to have struggled. And again, it goes back to the whole thing. It's like if you're going to put your champion up against somebody, you got to make it look like it. At least make it look like it's tough. I mean, if you're going to go up against somebody and I think Tasha Steelz was a good choice, but I agree. I think that it ended very flat. It was just sort of like boom, boom, and done. There was no challenge. At least it didn't feel like a challenge, and there should have been because I think because the way she fights, it's more like street fighting, or like high school locker room hallway fighting, and I just felt like it. I don't know. This was my second match that I enjoyed of this whole thing, but it literally, I agree. I was enjoying it up to the end, and then it was like, and I don't know if that's we're getting tired. Let's just skip to the end or what. But I didn't feel like there was enough challenge at the end. I mean, I just for these two powerful women going at each other, and it started off really great. And it was going great. And then once we got out onto the sort of ramp there, the gas just started going out of the engine. And it was like, oh, this, and oh, we'll just, I'll push you, you push me, or I'll throw you here, you throw me there. And it was just sort of like, really? I was like, I wanted something more from the ending of it. I did. And that's what I'm agreeing. I totally agree, Andrew. I think it kind of ended on a note. And I think if for such an important match, I don't think it should end on such a note. It's like it should end on a big note. I mean, it's all your championship matches should end on a big note. And I just didn't think this ended on a good one. So
yeah. So I'm interested to see who Masha's first opponent is going to be leading into Genesis. And we shall see what goes down with all of that. So now, I have never cracked a smile more with the Hardys than I did when... But that's not that I did when they basically threw these two through the table the same way that they got thrown in not too long ago. But let's talk about that crazy fan, you guys. Holy shit. He took a swipe at Eddie and Eddie got into it with him. I was like, oh, what the? I'm like, y'all, it's 2024. What are we doing? That took me out. I'm sorry. I was like,
I actually saw the match because it was going all over social media. Like, I don't condone. You shouldn't put your hands. I mean, you shouldn't put your hands on anybody else, but you should definitely not put your hands on the performers, especially because as much as wrestling fans hate it's fake, we all know it's performance. So even when it's a heel and someone being an asshole or being a douchebag or whatever, like, they're performing. I mean, at least you hope they're performing, but they're out there doing their job. And no matter what, you shouldn't put your hands on them. But it put me on hyper watch when I was watching this because I wanted to see how the interaction started. And it was funny because Eddie was getting in a lot of fans' faces. There was someone on the opposite side of the ring that he got up in that person's face about something because he said something to them. He went away and they said something and he came back and got in their face. And it always makes me I don't want to say uncomfortable, but nervous or something. Like, as I see this a lot in GCW, especially with people like Mance Warner. And part of that's because they have no barriers. There's no barricades at GCW shows.
Oh, yeah. That
And-
is something that's always in the back of my mind, too, like in GCW shows, because there is no the barricade to separate audience and performers. But especially someone like Mance, who is a complete fucking psychopath right now in his character.
And so, like, I see a lot of those interactions where, like, they jaw at the fans and the fans jaw back at them and they go at it. And, like, you know, there's some of the times when I'm like, dude, don't, like, even though that person's a performance fighter, they're still a big person that, you know, goes out there and does, like, rough stuff a lot. But then at the same time, I'm like, what if one of the fans that's there is like, I'll fight you, and you don't know who the fuck those people are? Like, but it's just one of those things where it's like, I don't want either side to escalate it to a point that's going to be bad. And you have a certain responsibility as a fan that you can't do that. You can't get involved. Just like you shouldn't put your hands on someone in any other inappropriate way when you're at those shows. And I did see that watching it, because I was hyper focused on the Eddie interaction with the fan that actually slapped him, was Eddie went over and he slapped the drink out of the guy's hand, which I also think Eddie shouldn't have done, because don't get me wrong, it's not as bad as like slapping someone in the face and having that physical interaction with, but you're physically striking them. They paid money for the refreshments that they have, like that kind of thing. Like, he shouldn't have done that, but it didn't justify what the fan did either. And what the fan did, like, I don't think Eddie should have slapped him back, but at the same time, I understand that slap back versus, you know, all the things that happened before it. But yeah, it was just such a bad situation. Like, I mean, don't get me wrong, it could have been a lot worse.
Right.
But it was just one of those things where it was like, dude, that's an unfortunate thing to happen, and it's an extra bummer because that was the big thing that everyone was talking about coming out of this pay-per-view.
Yeah, which took away from this match. Not to say that this match was like 5 stars out of nothing,
No.
but I do agree. I do feel that this was a fun match, again, because it's a tables match, so gimmick matches tend to be fun, and this is something that the Hardys literally pioneered in their career when they were part of the first ever TLC match, you know, back in the Fed and whatnot. But the only thing that I focused on afterwards was also that fan and Eddie's interaction. You know, I just want to touch upon that really too. And thank gosh, in all of the wrestling events that I have been to, like, the audience has been super chill, except for when we went to NXT Stand and Deliver in Los Angeles 2 years ago, because my friend Uriel's at that time, because CM Punk was being hated on in WWE because he was about to go to AEW. And my friend Uriel thought it was a funny idea before the show started to do the CM Punk chants, and we got daggers all around. And I was like, oh God, we're about to get mobbed. Thanks a lot, Uriel. It's all your fault. But thank goodness, and everything that I've been to, nothing like that has happened. No fights have happened between performers and audience members, and the audience hasn't gotten too crazy where safety is an issue. And that's always my priority, because I want to enjoy my wrestling. Like, wrestling, I've been lucky enough to be in the live crowds with some really chill people around me, and we've been cool and everything, except for the people at Full Gear last year. I wanted to fight you because you were being misogynistic, but that's neither here nor there. I will tell that story afterwards, because I almost got up and was about to say something to somebody because I was getting really mad because they were being very misogynistic to the women on that show. Anyways, this was our semi-main event, which I thought was weird, but it is the Hardys, so it makes sense. Hardys do win. Don't put the system in this tag team champion picture anytime soon. Absolutely not. But then again, I was like, well, who else do we have? I mean, Hardys versus Rascals could be fun, but let's save that for down the road. Don't give it to me at Genesis, because we really are also kind of running low on men's tag teams at the moment as well, because Hammer Something is incapacitated because Hammerstone's out. You know, Ace Austin is now going to be a single star for what seems to be for right now. So really, we only have the system, the Hardys. I mean, the Northern Armory, if we get them away from Josh.
Or use Josh to promote them up to title picture. Like, they basically just call them in when they're like, oh, Josh needs to have a faction with them. Oh, he's doing some on his own. Well, they don't even need to be at the show.
Yeah. Hardys retain. I think they're going to hold these things for a while because they did re-sign with TNA. So I can't believe I'm saying this, but I'm kind of excited. I love the Hardy Boys. If they want to finish out in TNA, I'm not going to be mad. I'm going to be honest. But we shall see what happens with all of that. Them going over to TNA to face Fraxium actually would be kind of fun too. I'm not going to lie. We'll talk about Fraxium afterwards because those boys are being worn and torn. Nick Nemeth wins. Moving on. Just kidding. Like, this was like, let's be all the way 100. There was no way in God's green earth that Nick Nemeth was losing this championship. I will say, though, AJ Francis' moonsault was kind of pimping to watch. I'm not going to lie. That moonsault was kind of great. It doesn't come close to Tiffany Stratton's, though, but I still thought it was great.
I actually like this match more than other matches.
Right. I did too.
I think my problem with AJ Francis is kind of the same thing with Leon Slater. Is he goes in there and he does stuff that should make him a legit giant big man, that kind of stuff. Like, he could come across as being a real threat. He's one of the biggest people in TNA, like height and weight wise. He could he should be a threat to someone like Nick Nemeth. And in this match, there were multiple times when he seemed like it was, and part of it's because Nick Nemeth's really good at putting over his opponents, beating him up.
Mm-hmm.
But the issue is, outside of in-ring action, the way that they promote AJ Francis, he comes off more of like a Frankie Kazarian type character, where he's manipulating and doing shenanigans and things like that in order to put himself in these kind of situations. Instead of, like, you could still take him as first class, you could still take him in this kind of thing, but don't have him be such a comedic bad guy when he's outside of the ring, and have him be like a legit threat. Because you could totally have him be that way. And I feel like part of the reason he's leaving TNA is because he wants to go do more somewhere else. Like, I feel like they've used him well, but not nearly as well as they could have, because the reason I say they've used him well is they've re-promoted him a lot from where he came from his kind of downfall, no pun intended, in WWE. Part of that was he was willing to, and they took advantage of really like clowning on him for it. But I think now was the time to, like, or a while ago was the time to move him away from that and have him be a legit threat. But this match, I thought it was a pretty solid match. I would say this was probably like, the last three matches were probably my favorite matches of the night.
Agreed. Will's favorite person, AJ Francis. I'm just kidding.
Nope.
And that has been.
It wasn't a horrible match. I mean, I don't like AJ Francis. Don't give a crap about him. I really don't. So when he's in the ring, I don't really pay attention to him. Not saying that he's not a good wrestler, but I just, because of the character he's created, I just don't care.
That's very fair.
And I knew that there was no way that he was going to beat Nick Nemeth. There was no way. So this is, again, it was a very predictable match. So again, and that's when I tend to get kind of like, okay, I'm going to do something else while this is happening. Because it's like, why? I mean, it's like when you know the outcome of the movie, why go see the movie? Wait for it to come out on, streaming service or something. I don't know. It just, I was like, eh. But I do agree with Andrew on his assessment of AJ Francis. I think that if he actually stopped being a clown and actually became a serious wrestler, he could be a threat. Like, truly. Drop the clown character. This sort of like stereotypical, badass black guy, and like become a threat. Because you're right. He has the power. He has the know-how. He has the size. I mean, yeah, absolutely. If he like took himself a little bit more seriously, or not himself, but the character a little bit more seriously, and created something, I think he could. I think he could be a threat. And then I'd probably be more behind him on that one. So that's it.
So Nick Nemeth retains. We get an ending shot of Nick and Joe facing each other as we learn that it's going to be Nick versus Joe at Genesis, which I'm so jealous that Will gets to witness firsthand live. And
that makes me really hopeful that Joe wins. So you
for reals, I want Joe to win so that way Will can actually cry tears of joy at a wrestling event. It's like, yeah. But that brings us to the end of Final Resolution. Not the greatest pay-per-view, not gonna lie. It wasn't. I still think Turning Point is the worst of this year, but damn, Final Resolution also became very close just because of how many questionable booking decisions we made. The venue for Turning Point is what made it very bad, as well as the matches we got with it too. But this was like a standard regular pay-per-view, and TNA managed to still kind of mess it up in parts. This was not a strong end to TNA's pay-per-view schedule this year, which then brings us into our final bit. So I'm gonna take us to our regular studio for a little bit. Oh, so good to be back in our regular space. Look at all this blue. So let's just talk about TNA in 2024, because this company threw us for a fucking loop, the beginning and the end, really, and had some really fun parts of the menu. So let's start at the beginning of the year. We already established that Turning Point and Final Resolution 2023 was doo-doo in its build, and it was not great. And then as soon as Final Resolution 2023 went off the air, we found out that TNA Impact was being rebranded into TNA. That got me all hyped. I was so excited. And then we fast forward to Hard to Kill, which is still my favorite pay-per-view of the whole entire year. Nothing in any company has came close to the magic that was Hard to Kill, because we got debuts from Hammerstone. We also got bittersweet endings because it ended up being Trinity's last few matches before she went back to WWE. We also got one of my personal favorite matches, Kushida versus Chris Sabin versus Vikingo for the X Division Championship. It was just a fun night all around, which then led into a fun January of tapings. Will Ospreay versus Josh Alexander 2 happened. We had the Motor City Machine Guns team up with Kazuchika Okada, taking on the System when it first debuted. You know, we were riding high. Then the dreaded February, a week like leading into Sacrifice. No Surrender in February. We get word that Scott D'Amore has been fired from TNA. That was a dark day for all of us. I remember when that went down. I could not breathe. I was in utter disbelief. Like very few things in the professional wrestling world catch me by surprise where I cannot form a singular sentence to describe what I think about a piece of news. But when I saw that Scott got fired and let go from TNA, I was just like, oh my God, what is happening to TNA right now? Oh my God, it's going down. It's about to be on fire. Like, I know it was a long time ago, but boys, like, there was not enough words to describe the feelings that we were having at that time. So, I mean, let's stop right there before we go on. Like, boys, let's rehash this a little bit. Like, do we think TNA suffered great? Well, I mean, it did. Let's be honest, it did a little bit because there were just no Scott's magic was missing for the remainder of 2024 after that in certain parts. But boys, what do you remember about that time and how you were feeling about all this? Because I was such in disbelief. I was so scared for TNA's future.
I mean, I put it in my, review, my kind of review of 2024, that my WTF moment was TNA letting go of Scott D'Amore. I I was super worried about what that meant was going to happen, especially because it was also at a time when there was a lot of change coming in other professional wrestling promotions. It had me worried that we were going to see kind of the collapse of TNA. Like maybe they were just getting ready to just kind of do away with it and do something else, which was also a shock because we had just got this rebranding back into TNA and it seemed so high. It seemed like we were on such an upward trajectory and then they just took the wheels out and it was just like, what? But why? And we were willing to let them kind of continue on and see what was going to happen. And it seemed like things were going really well. And I don't want to jump too far ahead, but I feel like what we got was what you get in a lot of, and I don't want to open up the political can of worms, but it feels like what you get in a lot of political changeover. Now looking back, I feel like a lot of the good that we got was because of what Scott set up and already had started. And now we're starting to get to the end of that. And now we're starting to see the real cracks.
Yeah, I agree. I think we were in that, well, it's only been 10 months. So we were in that, dare I quote unquote, honeymoon phase of the new takeover. And so we were, I agree with you. I think we were riding the Scott D'Amore wave all the way to recently. And I think it's starting to crash on the shore now. And that's why we have all the, like, Josh leaving, Jordan leaving. I mean, this long list of people. And not only that, but prior to that, a long list of people were like suddenly let go. And I'm just like, people were suddenly like, oh, I'm not renewing my contract. And I was like, oh yeah, now we're starting to see the foundation is starting to crack and shift. And I think this currently is like the big crack in the foundation. And I don't know, not to jump ahead, but I don't know what's in store. I don't know what it's going to look like.
No. And obviously, it's going to be a building phase for the first probably 3 or 4 months in 2025 for TNA, especially with some of their more established stars who've been here for the last 4 or 5 years are finally leaving the company. I mean, Bailey's gone. Josh is about to be gone. Jordan's going to be gone. And then we have stars like Trent and Kushida and AJ Francis are going to be gone. So, and then it also sucks for the people who just signed too. Like, I love Casey Navarro. I'm worried for him. We also got a new knockout in our division with Miss Liang Lee. So I hope I don't want her to go to the wayside either, because she already experienced that at NXT when they didn't know how to utilize her on the main roster either, which also made me mad too. And then it also, with these true cracks, it makes me worried for the people who are going to stay. Like, what's going to happen to people like the Elegance girls? Like, are TNA going to continue to let them do their current gimmick? What about people like Tasha and Zaya? And Zaya Brookside?
Even like Mike Santana. What are they going to do? What are we going to see with him? Are they going to go, oh, hey, we've got these great guys that are staying with us. Are we going to elevate them, or are we just going to keep them below and pull new people in and elevate new people? Because, usually when you have a shakeup, it's because you're tired of what's happening currently. So you're wanting to bring in new faces, new gimmicks, so your folks that are established tend to get pushed to the back. Because in favor of the new people, that's going to be the new faces of whatever, or they're going to be, we found this really great new wrestler, and I think they're going to be amazing, and then they premiere them, and then all of a sudden that new wrestler is like booked over Mike Santana, or booked over Joe Hendry, or all of a sudden it's like, wait, what's happening right now? I mean, and we don't know if that's going to happen. We don't know what's going to happen until it happens, but we can speculate till the cows come home. But I mean, I don't think it bodes well with a lot of their big talent kind of leaving, choosing not to stay. Which is a far worse blow to the ego than anything else when they choose not to stay with you.
Mm-hmm.
That's, firing someone. It's like, yeah, we fired them because, whatever. But when they're like, I'm not going to stay with you. It's like, ooh,
well, remember, towards the beginning of the year, too, we also found that worry because remember, TNA enacted to keep Josh longer than actually he was supposed to be. They kept him for a lot longer. They extended his contract because that was part of his contract clause. And I was just like, oh, I don't know how to feel about this.
Yeah.
But, well, and then, like we said, the more established stars, now it makes me, and again, I have to go back to the knockouts because the men are going to need to be some rebuilding, and TNA needs to decide who's going to be their faces of their men's division. And I'm hoping that Joe, Nick, Macklin, and Santana and Moose, those are the 5 that you want to build this newer foundation on. But my knockouts division, I'm a little bit worried for because of the name that Tessa brings to wrestling, because she is a Blanchard. Her father is Tony Blanchard. Like, that is a legacy that bears a lot of weight in the wrestling world. And I'm not saying that TNA is going to do this, but it makes me worry for how long they're going to let Masha hold that title. I want Masha to have a same tear through the division like Jordan did. But because of Tessa now being back in TNA, I don't know how long they're going to let Masha hold that. And that's such a disservice because Masha has worked the last year and a half to get to finally be a champion with all of this. And then I would hate for it to be taken away for her before it truly gets to blossom into something amazing. Yeah, again, it's weird that we began the year and now to the end of the year for TNA, we find ourselves in this weirdly weird position of some uncertainty and where the direction of this company is going to go. So only thing that we can do is continue to hold on to the ride for as long as we can. And I think both of my co-hosts would agree with me, but I will say this here and now for all the listeners. So we 3 had some private conversations in our text messages and talking to each other. And ultimately, this is my plan. And thankfully, these 2 kind of were okay going along with it. I want to wait and see where TNA goes in 2025. And I don't want to be reactive and just write it off because I don't think it's fair. Because despite the ups and downs and despite Final Resolution not being as great as I wanted it to be, TNA this year definitely did have some really stellar things for me. Nick Nemeth is here. Mike Santana returned to TNA, which made me super excited. And we had some really fun times in 2024. But I want to give some time to TNA in 2025 to see where they go. So, as of right now, BC WrestlePod will continue to cover TNA. It will stay on our docket. And TNA will have between now, well, technically in January when we get regular shows back, because right now the next 2 weeks are going to be clip shows of the best of 2024. But come the beginning of January, all the way into TNA's Rebellion in April, that is going to be the period in which we see where TNA is going as far as direction-wise between Genesis and Rebellion. And by the end of Rebellion, we will reassess at the end of April and see if we're going to continue the second half of 2025 covering TNA. I know that's a big, lengthy window of time, but it needs to be said now because we are trying to be proactive and not reactive. So I think it's only fair, and I think my constituents would agree with me here. We want to be fair, but don't fuck this up, TNA. Please don't. RH already has taken my trust and throw it down the trash. Don't be another company that does that. Piss me off. Please don't. I apologize, boys. I just care so damn much about this professional wrestling company, and I want to see good things for all the talent involved, man. You know, despite how we felt about Tommy Dreamer's title run as, digital media champion, I'm hoping that him and Gail are going to try to hold it down and try to do right by everybody. So we'll see what happens with all of that.
Well,
but they don't go somewhere.
Yeah, true.
That's
Suddenly
if
they're gone.
Gail Kim and NXT, let's go. I'm just saying.
it's just like anything else in the world, when it's like restaurants, when a restaurant gets new ownership, everything changes. And sometimes it's less appetizing because, they cut corners or, like we were talking about them, asking the wrestlers to take pay cuts. I'm like, see, and it's just like, oh, suddenly the meal doesn't taste as good. And that could happen. I mean, this new management, maybe they're officially kicking in their new style. Maybe we're about to see a whole new rebranding again. Who knows? I don't know, but it just, and again, it's just okay, whatever. I mean, it's going to be what it's going to be. Whether if they screw it up, they screw it up, and it's just going to tank. Or they may be like, oh no, we have some really good ideas, and maybe they do. They come out of the shoot, full speed, and we're like, oh holy hell, yeah, this is amazing, But we won't know until it happens. So it's like, yeah, we shouldn't. I don't think we should just give up on it just because of all this. I mean, because we don't know, So I'm all for hanging on until we can't hang on anymore, basically.
If you love something, you must let it go.
I mean, I'll say it to what Will was saying is I do feel like this is like my example after watching Final Resolution was very similar to what Will just used. Is I felt like it's a restaurant that you found that even though it wasn't the flashiest, even though it wasn't the fanciest, you found it, you really liked the meals. It actually had some really good stuff on the menu. It was high quality. It just spoke to you, and you really liked going there repeatedly. Then they fired the head chef, but they kept the menu, they kept the ingredients, they did those things, or at least for the most part. So for a little while, it was good. But it now feels like we're getting to a point where it's a mixture of, it's the same menu, but the ingredients aren't quite what they used to be. They're not quite following the recipe like they did. I'm getting kind of tired of the same meals too. Like a lot of stuff is feeling like it's being repetitive, and that repetition is lower in quality than it used to be, because I had to look back and see what the last Final Resolution was, and there were a lot of matches on there that I was like, I don't even remember that match. But I will also say that we had Jordan and Trinity in a tag match together. We had Zack Sabre Jr. and Josh Alexander in a tag match together as two of our two last matches of that card. There were some big things on there, and it really felt like we were leading into something big. Now I feel like we've completely lost a lot of that momentum, and I don't know what we're heading into. And it only feels like Genesis is going to be something big because they're telling us that it's something new and exciting. I think they made the right choice having Hendry and Nemeth headline it, because you need to take advantage of Hendry's hype while you still have him. But there isn't enough that is like, oh, I'm so excited to see 2025 for TNA. Like I'm just like I was when we ended 2023. So it just isn't keeping me as as excited, and it's a bummer because there are a lot of really good people there. There's a lot of really good potential there. TNA has such a good history. And I don't need it to be competing with WWE. I don't need it to be competing with AEW. It just needs to be quality for what it is. And it concerns me that we're now really getting to a point where they're trying to just cut corners so they can have this company without investing in it like they need to. I hope you don't mind me saying this, Mikey, but I've already talked to you that I won't be around for TNA. I'm focusing a lot on GCW. But even though I'm not reviewing shows like TNA and Ring of Honor anymore, I still have hope for those shows. I still have hope for all of the promotions, because I think the better that they all do, and the more variety that they all provide, the better it is for us as fans, and the better it is for the performers who want to go out there and do these things, because the more of these that we have and the better they are, it means the more that those performers can shine in the ways that they should for themselves, not having to fit into like, oh, there's only this one big company where you've made it, so you have to do it their way. And it really is like, competition breeds, creativity. It breeds that, it creates betterment across the board. So I hope for these companies, because I like the legacy of TNA. I like the legacy of Ring of Honor. And I want to see those things grow. Just like I want to see places like WWE, even though I have issues with some of their practices, I want to see them evolve into something that is better. I don't want to see them go away. I just want them to be better in the areas that they have not been good at, just like I want to see for TNA and all the other companies.
Yeah, I try not to get emotional here when I say this, but professional wrestling to me in the last couple of years has become something that, I mean, granted, outside of this and doing a YouTube channel and podcasting about it and covering it like a regular news outlet does, professional wrestling has been something that has been really magical for me. And every host here has heard this origin story as to why it has. And that stems from it to being some of the last memories I have with my own grandmother during the pandemic era. And that, we were all stuck in the house together. I was continuing to watch wrestling like I normally did. And it was because of the excitement that I got to share with her, because she became my partner in crime when it came to wrestling, because we were all stuck in the house together during the pandemic. So I want all these companies to thrive, because I feel like there are so many promotions out there that just speak to a type of wrestling fan. And I'm not blind enough to tribalistic wrestling fans, and I'm not of those people that says, "Oh, it doesn't exist," because it absolutely does. And the tribalism has also extended into just general gatekeeping, especially when it comes to fans who are of certain persuasions and colors, if you will, at certain extents. But professional wrestling in 2024 has been something so magical for me that I get to talk about it every single day, almost every single week, with other people who love it as much. And specifically in regards to TNA, while I'm not happy with some of the decisions that were made this past weekend at Final Resolution, and then bummed out to hear all the people that aren't going to be coming back in 2025, I remain optimistic and hopeful for TNA, because they, to me, have given me such really great stuff since I started picking them back up 3 years ago. And so I want to continue that. And I want to continue to enjoy all the people I love there, like, Macklin and Santana and Hendry, Masha, and the whole entirety of the Knockouts division. So time will tell. But that is where we're going to end it tonight, because I could go on forever, but it's late. We spent an hour and a half talking about this, and then our feelings about where we're going with TNA. But this has been a really fun review, despite us just talking nonstop crap about everything. And yeah, I mean, I said it before we started too, but as Andrew just said, moving forward is just going to be me and Will for a little bit for TNA. So it has been a very fun year, Andrew, to have you be a part of this little trio. And hopefully, depending on where things go, hopefully one day you'll come back to us. Well, me and you will be spending a lot of time together anyways, but even still.
I will say, I've obviously become the fanboy for GCW, as it is no secret now. But a big part of how I got into GCW was because of returning and watching TNA. Honestly, it was TNA and NXT, because I got to know performers that were there, and then and the places that TNA went, especially when they went to England and things like that, I got to see other performers that piqued my interest, and then saw that was like, hey, they're doing this other company, GCW. So it was a gateway for that too. And I think that's another area that TNA really has something special. You know, they do touch into a lot of worlds that the other promotions don't. So, you know, if it wasn't for jumping on in this, I probably wouldn't have discovered GCW the way I did. And it's been a fun year, you know. I'm happy I got to experience that changeover from Impact back into TNA. It was, you know, an awesome experience, and you know, getting to cover NXT and TNA with you two was a lot of fun. So you know, I'm happy that the two of you are going to continue to cover this, and potentially with another new host. But you know, I'll still be watching along and listening and following along in the dirt sheets, as they say, to hear what's going on there, and keeping hope for the best.
Yeah, so I mean, Andrew, you're not going anywhere in regards to BC Wrestle Pod, but on behalf of myself and Will, we're gonna miss you. We love having you this whole year, and I mean, yeah, it's gonna be different, just like TNA is changing. Things are changing here at BC Wrestle Pod, but I'm excited to see where 2025 brings all of us, and I can't wait for all of us to be working on the various things we got going on and planned for 2025, because it's going to be a good one. And that is where we're going to end tonight. It has been a long one, so thank you for tuning into our Final Resolution PLE review and our TNA end of 2024 talk. I would like to thank my co-hosts Andrew and Will for being a part of Takedown Troop for the last year. And for the rest of you that are watching, thank you so much for tuning in. And from all of us here at BC WrestlePod, for the last time this year for Takedown Troop, remember, take care of yourself, love one another, stay Bi-Conic, and more importantly than anything, you always deserve to finish your story. Well, we will be back in 3 weeks when TNA goes back to regular scheduled weekly programming and not clip shows. But until then, sayonara, adios, and take care of yourselves tonight.